Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Future Empress. My name is Anna and today I'm gonna talk about all the books and movies and TV shows that I read and watched in August. So this month I actually only read 4 books, so I thought it would be fun to just talk about all the movies and TV shows that I also watched during the month of August. Thought it would be kind of fun and something different too. Let's just get into the wrap up. First book I'm gonna talk about in this wrap up is Loveboat Taipei by Abigail Hing. I listened to this on audiobook and I was just doing my bullet journal spreads and wanted an audiobook to listen to, and I've heard a lot of things about this one, so I picked it up. It's a book about a girl named Ever. She is a dancer and she is applying for colleges, and her parents want her to be a doctor, and she has gotten in there for the doctor program, but she doesn't want to become a doctor because one, she has a fear of blood, so whenever she sees blood she gets squeamish and throws up, and secondly, she wants to be a dancer. But her parents end up sending her to this camp in Taipei for Chinese American children to study Mandarin and get closer to their culture. I just really like the challenge that Ever faces with who she is and choosing what to do with her life, albeit whatever her parents want her to do, but finding her own path in life and discovering what that is. I just really appreciated that part of the book. However, I think that got drowned out by so much drama that happens in this book. It's bound to happen. The camp is nicknamed Loveboat Taipei because there's so many couples that gets together there. However, I just felt there was unnecessary drama. Like, I get that there would be drama, but there was a lot of unnecessary drama and it just deterred the storyline away from Ever's journey. However, I really liked the ending and how it all summed up. I just did not like the middle part of the book. It was too dramatic for my taste, and that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was still a very good read, but not the perfect read, but still I think it's an important one, especially with Ever's journey. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that one, and me including, because I'm an immigrant living in another country as well. So I could relate to some parts, just not the Chinese culture part. And then I read History is All You Left Me by Silvera. This is a book that I started in February, where I'll listen to the audiobook while I was in South Korea. However, I just couldn't get into the audiobook, so I put the audiobook down at like 1/3 in, so I would be able to physically read it and properly get into it when I got back home. So that's what I did. I picked it up almost right after when I got home in July, and I've been slowly reading it and getting through it. It helped a lot to physically read it again because I began from the beginning, so I would be able to understand everything properly. This is a queer book about a boy who loses his ex-boyfriend and ends up talking with his ex-boyfriend's new boyfriend about it and getting through everything with the help of him. It's kind of twisted, and he also has OCD and is struggling with that alongside with everything else, so his mental health is very fragile. And it's one of the best parts of this book is how honest and true the emotions that Griffin goes through is and portrayed. It's just beautifully done. However, I think one of the reasons I had a hard time getting into the audiobook of this one was because I just didn't enjoy the first part of this book that much. Even when I read it physically, I didn't enjoy it that much. I actually just wanted to read the today chapters because it's split up in chapters where it's the current day and then the history chapters where you can see the history between Theo and Griffin and just everyone else in their life. I just found myself reading, like almost skimming through the history chapters because I wasn't that interested in them, just to get to the today chapters because that's where I was invested in the story and I wanted to know what happened next, especially with Theo's boyfriend and Griffin. I also realized that I actually didn't care that much about Theo in general, so I think that's maybe why, because the history chapters was so heavily centered around Theo, because it's Griffin and Theo's relationship and how they began and ended and what happened between them that is told through the history chapters. Honestly, Theo wasn't that much of an interesting character, even though he is written as one, but for the story I was more interested in getting to know Griffin more and getting to know Wade no more, and the ex-boyfriend, what is his name again? Jackson. I was more interested in those parts. I actually annotated it and tapped a lot of things in this book, which surprised me because my feelings it was a roller coaster reading this book because I was not sure how I felt about this book at any point. Because at some points I just really did not like this book, and at other points I was very, very invested, and I really loved how the book was portraying things and doing things, and then I would just get slapped back down again, and it was such a roller coaster to read emotionally and physically. It was just a lot to take in and a lot happened, and I think it's one of those reasons that I am going to be giving it a 4 out of 5 stars, because the characters here are so raw that they borderline of being unlikable characters, but that's because they are so human and they're doing mistakes and doing stuff that you don't agree with, and that's one of the points where I was like, I really don't like what this book is doing. But then Adam Silvera in the end just turns it around and lets you see that the characters know this was mistakes and they are learning from it. They are not perfect, they still have their flaws, but they're working on it and they're trying to be better and they're trying to work through the problems they caused in like the middle of the book, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. And by that I have a quote in this book that sums up my reading experience and just this book in general, and that quote is, "It's weird to think about how much has changed and gotten messy, almost as if our friendship was a 1,000-piece puzzle being put together by a 1-year-old who got everything wrong." That just sums everything up in this book, honestly, in every good way possible. Almost. It was very human, this book, and I really appreciated what it did. 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to be reading Adam Silvera's next books. And I just want to say here in the end, to sum everything up, the Best Friend Award goes to Wade because he's so patient and he deals with all the crap he gets dealt and still managed to be a good person, and he's the best character in this book, and he gets too little page time compared to how great he is. The next book I read was Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. I started this one in October last year during the Fairy Loot read-along for this book. This is the Fairy Loot edition, so I was participating in that one. However, life got in the way. I put it down, never picked it up again. It's a common theme currently for my life. I picked it up again in August. I listened to the audiobook until the part that I had gotten to physically, just like get a summarize of what was happening before I put it down. So all the things were fresh in my mind. And then I physically read the rest part of it, and I'm glad that I did. I was reminded why it was such an interesting read to begin with. The plot and the characters are so interesting to follow along to, and it's really what drives the book. The magic system is such an interesting concept, and just in general, the witch marrying a witch hunter concept is very intriguing. However, because it's so character driven with those parts, I feel like the world building was lacking a bit. There was a lot of opportunity to do more with the world, and I think that's just coming in the second installment in this book, which I can't wait for. Blood and Honey. I am so excited for that one to come out, especially after finishing this. It was so good. The beginning of this book was also a bit slow because a lot of the times when it's a character-based or character-driven book, the plot's what comes second, and therefore it was very slow in the beginning for things to happen, but eventually at the halfway point it picked up and it just bam bam bam, and it was so interesting to follow along to, and I just can't wait for Blood and Honey. I want it in my hands now, but alas, I have to wait. And then the last book I read in August was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I listened to this on audiobook. The thing about this book, I think I went into this without knowing too much about it, which is usually what I prefer. However, with this one, I just don't think this was a book for me, but thinking about the premise and everything else about the book, it feels like something that I would be interested in reading, but I think the execution of the actual book just wasn't for me. I don't know if it was the writing style of Stephen Graham Jones or it was just because I'm not a native English speaker, so I had a harder time getting into it. Because listen, I tried 3 times to get into this book, and 2 times by audiobook. I rewinded. I was 30% in or something, but I rewinded to the beginning and listened to it again. I was still not able to get into it, so I ended up renting the ebook and reading the beginning of the first 4 or 5 chapters before I properly could understand what was going on in this book. So I think maybe that's something to do with it. The writing style was kind of weird for me, at least. And then the pacing was also weird. Like, I feel like the pacing was very off. I felt in the beginning it just went very fast, and then at some point it just like slowed and then fast again, and I was so confused on what was going on at almost throughout the whole book. In the end, there was like this basketball scene that I feel like was so long and quick at the same time, because I feel like the ending was so quick, but because of the basketball scene it felt so long as well. The book just confused me, and that's why unfortunately I gave it 2 stars. And the reason it got 2 stars and not 1 star is because I really appreciated the cultural aspect of this book and getting to know more traditions from a culture that I don't know that much about. So that's what I appreciated from it, and I liked the premise. Like I said in the beginning, I liked the premise of the book and with the cultural aspect and everything. However, it just wasn't a book for me at all. It was not a bad book, just not a book for me. And so that is all the books I read in August. So let's get into the TV shows and movie section of this wrap up. So I read 9 movies in total during August. 5 of them being Barbie movies, so I'm not gonna talk very much about those. I am currently rewatching all the Barbie movies from the first publication to the last, so I'm watching them in order. So I watched Barbie and the Nutcracker, Barbie as Rapunzel, Barbie of Swan Lake, Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper, and Barbie Fairytopia. Those 5 I watched. I don't know how to talk about Barbie. It's always such a nice and cozy time, but the quality or the content isn't maybe the highest of kids movies out there, but still good. And then I also rewatched Hotel Transylvania, which I love. I just love that movie. It's such a good movie, and I'm glad I rewatched it. I don't know why I rewatched it this month. I was doing my Stranger Things bullet journal spreads and I wanted to watch something. I usually watch Suits, but I just felt for Hotel Transylvania, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. Very happy that I did. And then I have 3 2020 releases that I watched this month. The first one was Project Power, which my friend recommended to me, and I can say without doubt that this is probably the best movie that I watched this month. It was so good. It was sci-fi, dystopian, it was still some action and touching moments. It was just such a good combination of everything that I love in a movie, and obviously I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you do the 10-star rating, 10 out of 10. Honestly, such a good movie. Go and watch it. It's on Netflix, at least the Danish Netflix. It's very good. I highly recommend. And then I watched The Sleepover, which is a family movie, and I love family movies. However, this one, it was very generic. 3 out of 5 stars, 6 out of 10 if you go by that rating system. It was just a very generic movie. It was fun, enjoyable. I will probably not rewatch it again though. And then I watched All Together Now, which I like the premise. Again, this is a situation where I like the premise, I like what the topics are. The execution of it fell flat. Something happened, just the pacing of it felt wrong. It was just suddenly the movie was over and you felt left out. Like, it touched upon so many subjects without actually going in depth with any of them. You just feel wanting to know more about what happened than you get, and that is a main reason. 2 out of 5 stars, which is 4 out of 10 if you go by that. Maybe it's just, again, not a movie for me. And that's it for the movies that I watched in August. And then going to the TV shows, I actually only watched 3 TV shows technically, because I started my rewatch of Avatar The Last Airbender series. I am only on book 1, episode 5, I think, so I'm not gonna talk that much about it. It's Avatar The Last Airbender. It's my all-time favorite cartoon. Watch it if you haven't. It's good even though when you're an adult. And I watched the Umbrella Academy season 2. It just came out this month and it was amazing. It was almost as good as season 1, honestly. Like, I also just really loved the setting of this particular season, because they are thrown back to the 80s, and I just love the 80s and 90s. So for me especially, this season was very good. I really, really liked this season, and I can't wait for season 3, even though we just got season 2. The final TV show I watched during August was Suits. I like watching Suits when I'm not doing something that requires much brain activity. I managed to watch season 5 this month, all of season 5, and I just want to say that this is probably my favorite season of Suits so far. I really loved what they did with Harvey's character, and without like altering his personality, but still delving into the depths of his problems and some of the mysteries about him that it's been hinting to through the 4 seasons before. We get to know what happened, and in detail we see him working on it without changing personality. Like I said, I just really enjoyed that part, and we have some consequences finally, and that's also one of the reasons I really enjoyed this season. It was just overall, I think it's the best season in the series so far, and it's rare, like a TV show that has like 8 seasons, that the middle seasons are the best, because usually is the ones that feels like filler seasons, or they're like just trying to make more out of something that should have been finished 2 seasons ago. But for me, I think season 5 is the best season of Suits. That is it for everything that I watched and read during August. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon, I guess. Bye!